Welcome back. It's Red Eye. We've got a very special guest, a presidential hopeful, Republican congressman from Texas, Mr. Ron Paul. How are you, Congressman?
Doing well, thank you. Nice to be with you.
It's great to have you here. Now, you've run for president a couple of times. Where are we at now?
Oh, no, not a couple times. Once before, I guess now it's a couple times. I ran as a Libertarian in 1988, and this is the second time.
So what made you go from Libertarian to Republican?
Well, the better question is what made me go from Republican to Libertarian, because I basically have been a Republican all my life. I've been in Congress as a Republican, and I ran as a Libertarian in 1998 when I was out of Congress.
Okay. I want to talk to you about a new survey that came out on it's a Fox News Opinion Dynamics poll, and the question was asked to 900 registered voters: can tougher gun laws help stop acts like the shooting at Vermont? 19% said yes, 71% no. People will always find a way to get guns. What's your response to this? Do you agree with the majority?
Absolutely. I've taken that position, and I think that gun laws can't prevent maniacs from doing these kind of acts. And matter of fact, I think the people who are capable of handling a gun should have them, and quite possibly if more people had guns on that campus, this might have ended a lot better than it did.
Well, Congressman, there are people that would say, well, if there were no guns, no one would have died. That's usually the response you get from, you know.
Yeah, that's what you hear, but if there's no freedom, there'd be no violence either. But nobody really believes that, and I'm really impressed with that poll you're citing, because that means the people are moving in our directions and are not intimidated by the anti-gun lobby.
Yeah.
No, guns in the hands of law-abiding citizens, I think is good, and besides, it just happens to be a constitutional right by the Second Amendment that you're allowed to have weapons to defend oneself.
Especially fabulous weapons covered in Swarovski crystal.
I have a question for you, Congressman. As a conservative myself, how can some conservatives be against Iran and countries like Iran having nuclear weapons and the principle of mutually assured destruction, yet think that every nutcase should be able to buy a gun and pack heat like this guy did, who obtained this weapon and went and shot up a campus? Isn't that inconsistent?
I think so. I think we should be less concerned. You know, I was in the military for 5 years in the 1960s, and I was drafted during the Cuban crisis. So the Soviets had 30,000 nuclear bombs and missiles, and you know, we didn't attack them, and we just lived through it, and we stood them down and stood firm. And so this idea that Iran might get a nuclear weapon in the next 10 years, that's what our CIA says, shouldn't make us hysterical and shouldn't make us move in the direction of another preemptive war and more tragedy. I think we were misled about Iraq, and I think we have to be very careful and not get hysterical about the possibility of Iran getting a weapon.
But if they have them.
Congressman, I want to move on to Iran, because John McCain was out, I guess it was in South Carolina, on his Straight Talk tour, and you might have seen it, but let's roll some tape to see what he did.
Never mind if they get a nuclear weapon. When do we send them an airmail message to Tehran?
You know that old Beach Boys song, Bomberan? You know, bomb, 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 bomb. Anyway.
Of course he was just kidding. But, Congressman, why do you think he did that? Do you think that was a smart move?
No, not really, because I think we're getting in a lot of trouble because we're careless with our policy that ends up bomb, bomb, bomb. I think it's un-American. I think it's unconstitutional. I think it's really not very Republican to be so willing to engage in this type of conflict when we haven't been attacked. So I don't think it's really something we should joke about.
But Congressman, Congressman, I have one question about this, though, because whenever we see other world leaders, the ones that we're at war with, they often say crazy things. Isn't it about time we said some crazy things just to scare them?
Well, we do. We say some pretty strong things. You know, Ronald Reagan went over there to the wall and said, tear down this wall. But the next day, he was out negotiating with the Soviets, which was, I think, beneficial. So leaders say things to pander to their people. And the same way with Ahmadinejad, he has to pander his people, and our leaders do the same thing. But I think that ratchets up the whole possibility of a conflict. So I think we should be more cautious, and we should be willing to talk to people rather than threatening them.
Okay. I want to move on to what Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid had to say today about the war. Let's roll that tape, shall we?
Now, I believe, myself, that the Secretary of State, Secretary of Defense, and you have to make your own decision as to what the President knows, that this war is lost and that the surge is not accomplishing anything as indicated by the extreme violence in Iraq yesterday.
Congressman, do you think that helps or hurts the morale of the troops? Because the Republicans certainly think it hurts.
Do you know, I had somebody tell me this that was served in Vietnam when everybody in Vietnam knew the war was lost. And every time they heard the optimistic pronunciations by our politicians back here at home, it made them more discouraged. It ruined their morale because they wanted to hear back at home say, you know, this war is not going well, let's end it, let's bring our troops home. That's what they wanted to hear. So no, I don't think it would necessarily encourage the troops over there, especially if they know. And our military, so many of our military leaders who have now gotten off active duty are now saying this is an unwinnable war, and they take the position that it can't be won. So I don't think it discourages the troop. I think they're doing their job, they're doing their very best, but I'm sure, you know, if you're getting sent over there for the third time, you're not very happy about it.
But Congressman, I mean, the thing is, this is exactly what our enemies love to hear. I mean, he's saying the same thing that the people that we're that are trying to kill us are saying. So, I mean, this can't be a good thing. We have to present a unified front, right?
Well, I think we will, but if we have a wise policy, we can provide for a unified front. But you know, there was a letter by Zawahiri, an email letter that said he hopes the Americans don't leave. He wants us to stay because it serves their interests, because they are able to use our occupation and the violence going on to do their recruiting. So this was an inside piece of information from their emails that says exactly the opposite. They enjoy us being there because it promotes their cause and increases the violence.
We're going to take a break. Congressman, stick around, and we'll have more questions for you and some more interesting stories for our viewers like these. A truck runs into a paintball store and goes blammo. I try not to fill my dipe from laughing so hard. It's fun to have fun. Whee! Had enough Canute news? Me neither. God, we have so much in common. We'll find out what crazy misadventure this great white dope has gotten himself into now. Hint, it may involve pratfalls and a wacky neighbor. And finally, stripper fight. Yes, stripper fight. Two exotic dancers get into a knockdown, drag-out fight using the only weapons they've got. No, not herpes, silly. Honestly, you are incorrigible.